All right.
Go ahead.
We are recording and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am sorry if you didn't get the link this morning. I guess there was a little bit of an issue with the reminder that I sent out this morning. So we may have a few people. I just sent out another reminder a few minutes ago. We may have some people joining us later. But today we were going to talk about the RFP process and switching systems. And we have 3 people speaking today. And I just figured we'd go in alphabetical order. That's just easiest, I guess. So we have Ronte Junis from Michigan State. She works in the Technical Services Department. We have Aaron Kilgore. He works here at Hillsdale College, and he is also a Technical Services Librarian. And then Patrick Roth is going to speak as well. And he is head of systems and discovery at Grand Valley State. So Aaron, are you all set? Oh, no, Ronte, you're going to go first. Sorry about that. You're alphabetically first.
This is fine. Hi, everyone. I'm Ronte Junus. I'm Systems Librarian for Electronic Resources here at MSU. Thank you for having me. I'm going to just brief share what we've done. I don't prepare any PowerPoint presentation, so I just talk a little bit with my notes on my hands here. So we've been asked about the RFP process and then a decision criteria and timeline, and it's actually took us almost a year on starting the RFP design thinking until the sign up and decision making. So what we did was we have a core, what we call it, the RFP team, and it's consists of variety of representation from different kind of units at MSU. We have somebody coming, a couple of people from the systems and circulation. Within technical services, there are certain group of people representing acquisition, cataloging, and the catalog system, electronic resource. And we also have representation from user experience group and public services and circulation, I think, and also interlibrary services. So all units are getting representation there. So what we did was actually we spread a survey asking to the library staff of criteria what we must have on this new system and what is good to have and what is nice to have. So basically, most essential, it's an essential but will not hinder our work, and then non-essential stuff. So we kind of like dream mix and stuff. And we put that on so RFP, we send it out, and we have 3 companies, as probably not very surprising, only probably 3 major companies will respond to that. And then we have them come a presentation. The timing is very interesting because the first company was able to come into the library and have a full presentation. And then the second presentation and third presentation happened when we started do this COVID thing. So early COVID thing when there's no executive order yet. So the core group come and then the rest of the team do Zoom involvement. And the third company, when we already have this executive order, so they do the presentation all full online. So it's a very different kind of approach and understanding how we learn about their system. The decision criteria is, I don't know if I can share my screen here, but we have a spreadsheet and questions that we send back to the library staff and about what they think is the strength of the company, how they see that from a different unit perspective for each company after company presentation. And then whether we actually also involve a couple of people from somebody from central IT who can help us looking at from security perspective, especially because all these three solutions going to be cloud-based, so it will involve quite a different kind of settings, especially about firewall rules and because the system also is going to accommodate catalog and staff from the state of Michigan, Library of Michigan. So there will be some kind of settings that we want to make sure Central IT understand who can have access from outside the MSU network, outside MSU network. And we also have a group from accessibility who's looking into this as well and do some kind of looking at information, how this system might or might not fulfill some kind of minimum accessibility requirement that we have. And so it's kind of pleasant surprise actually. The folio was get the highest number from especially for those who will have to deal with the system on a daily basis, so typically circulation and cataloging unit and other technical services. Because in the back of probably everybody's minds is we kind of know which company what might end up, but then we actually end up with a different kind of company. That's why I said it's kind of pleasant surprise. I think it's the idea that even it's hosted, but we can have saying what we want and what we need and can implement that without have to wait for, I don't know, we don't know when that to be implemented. Is probably has a one of the driving force of how we end up choosing this folio. The timeline is started in a summer 2019, I think, and we finally purchased, the university purchased, finally signed the contract as of a couple of weeks ago. So right now we can announce that formally this is folio that we have, and then we start talking about process implementation. I think I can share you a website information that we created for public view. Can I have a chat here? Submit that in the chat. It contains all the information. It's going to be get updated hopefully monthly. So we just started about which group is going to be implement as a first implementation, and then the communication plan, and then all this internal stuff that we have to figure out. We told them specifically we want to start with acquisition because that's we believe that is the most important part. It's because acquisition, when they did the demo, it doesn't seem to be finished yet. So we want to actually the finished acquisition before then we can start working on a different other module of the folio into this. So currently we have two groups, acquisition and the database migration, data migration. So folks from acquisition and folks from metadata and cataloging team are going to work into that. That's it. So.
Does anybody have questions for Ronte before we move on? I have a couple. Who else did you have in your RFP? Who else did you send it to?
We invited 4 companies, 3 replies because one of them get absorbed by another company.
And I guess we can guess who that is.
Well, I can say that we send it to OCLC, to Ex Libris, to Innovative, and to EBSCO Folio.
Okay.
EBSCO Folio actually takes a bit time to figure out how we're going to deal because open source is an open source, right? There's no ownership in open source. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the a little bit takes time to figure out because purchasing needs something, a body that they can deal with or a contract and stuff like that. So EBSCO kind of step in. We know EBSCO been selling a folio, and then so we have them as a company that we send the proposal to.
How long do you expect it to take to get 100% up and running?
Ah, I don't know. We would like that to be done. Initially plan is summer 2021. But I don't know, we probably need to push back a little bit because it took us a couple months before purchasing finally agreed to sign the whole contract thing. This negotiation takes a while.
Are there other questions at this point? Okay. Well, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat or just unmute yourself. This is pretty informal. So thank you, Ranti. And next we're going to have Aaron Kilgore from Hillsdale College. He's going to talk about our RFP process. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, everybody. Let me get this shared here. I think this is the first time that I've been sharing with a presentation. So are you all able to see that fine? Hello?
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. All right. Presentation mode. So the question is, where is that? It is hidden. There it is. All right. Yeah, I'm Aaron Kilgore, colleagues with Leanne. And so for some background on our RFP process, we've been with Innovative's Sierra system since about 2011, and with Millennium, which was also an Innovative product, before that, starting in 2002. So we've had a long relationship with Sierra and Innovative, and it was off to a good start at the time, but some factors over time built up to push us to explore our options. So for our first point of why we're exploring other options and went through the RFP process is price. Price is a pretty self-explanatory motivation. Our budget is finite and our needs are never ending. So getting the best bang for our buck and for fewer bucks, if possible, is an ideal that needs revisiting every now and then to make sure that we're getting the best deal. And this is not Sierra's strong point currently. Maybe more notably, we've had some ongoing issues with support, whether that's in their timeliness or things just not getting fixed at all when they come up, and that's software engineering. So some outstanding issues that have been left untouched for years, setting aside a recent batch that we were told outright they weren't going to work on because they had other things to focus on. Some of these perpetual problems include some search, sorting, and display issues, and some proxy difficulties. And as a third major point, Sierra just isn't really holding up as a modern system. It falls short in discovery, display, and functionality. We need greater usability and simplified work processes than it offers. It's a bit of a squeaky wheel when we want smooth interaction with other systems and utilities like proxy services and other outside third-party apps. ERM support is a major hassle and is probably the bane of Leanne's life. And we want to see some potential to work with BibFrame as that's further developed, and whatever that ends up looking like down the road. And there probably isn't a lot of room in Sierra's framework for that as we know it now. So why go through a full RFP process is another question. So making a change in a long-standing relationship requires some good reasons, as we mentioned before, but to really hold weight, they need to be formally and clearly stated. Moving beyond just airing grievances and problems, a lengthy and standardized statement of wants and needs helps us to determine what those actually are to begin with. In that process, we might discover something we hadn't thought of before, whether that's because we're used to having something or used to going without, let alone discovering the option to get something that we didn't know about by looking into things more fully. And the attention that we show to all of this also helps to communicate to potential vendors that we're seriously looking at something new, and that encourages them to put their best foot forward and respond to all of our needs and concerns, particularly because they know that they're competing with other people. So an RFP also gives us one impartial form for any number of options, which makes it easier to work with more vendors and helps us to be more objective in our assessment after the fact. Vendors have to give us specific answers, which we can compare using the same criteria across the board. So there's no apples and oranges scenario. We've got one ruler to compare all of their options and see what measures up best in those areas that matter most to us. So actually creating the RFP was a somewhat lengthy process. We started by making a cursory review of some other institutions' RFPs where we could come across those to get an initial idea of things that we didn't yet know that we needed to articulate. So we used OCLC's RFP template as the basis for ours, and we adjusted and expanded that according to MOSSE's needs. So granted, it's possible that there's a little bit of built-in bias using their form, but it hit all the major notes that we had in mind and highlighted some things that we hadn't thought of yet or put into words, but we decided that they were still things that we wanted to mention. So to cover areas that it hadn't, we had our library faculty go through the first draft individually and then send me their thoughts, with each librarian adding their essential and desired points. And then I made edits to the RFP draft through that group suggestion, some of which included our library director's mentions of our need for left-anchored indexing for searching, authority-driven redirects, integration with campus financial systems, display of MARC format electronic resource records. Leanne brought up some specifics on ERM support and proxy integrations. Our head of ITS suggested getting from the vendors their audited financial statements to ensure the financial well-being of their companies and that they would be around for a while to come, as well as copies of their contracts and privacy policies, security policies, and service level agreements. And then another colleague in ITS suggested adding mentions of citation software and learning management system integration, which is a big help in an academic environment. And then we send it through our legal department to get the all clear that there weren't any red flags and that we covered everything that they wanted to see initially. So some of the key points that we put forward in the RFP for the vendors, I've mentioned a few before, but being a modern system is really sort of the big focus of that. But part of that involves making sure that we had simplified work processes to use with our knowledge-based management for all of our collections, making sure that we had compatibility with single sign-on to match the rest of the college's systems, which our IT department has set up. Along that vein, we wanted to make sure that we had a good link resolver in whatever system we chose, and for it to play nicely with Open Athens, which we just started implementing this year. Good ERM support, as I've mentioned before, is also critical. Given the number of these kinds of records, they outnumber physical books clearly, and that's the same way for a lot of institutions. But a lot of work goes into that kind of management, and Leanne's the best guide there. So we wanted to make sure that that area was covered. But for a single specific example of ERM management, we want to make sure that we're able to easily reconcile records for the same journal when they have different OCLC numbers in our catalog. On a broad scale, we want to make sure that we have full support for library cataloging, specifically having a system that uses your expected bibliographic files, item records, authority records, and patron records, but making sure that we can do all of that with great ease of use. And then building on that, we're looking for support for archival cataloging and management. We've been building our college's archival collections, especially by bringing on a full-time archivist and consolidating various archive projects from around campus. So there's a greater need for that now than in the past. One of the things that we think will help with search discovery in these areas post-cataloging is the ability to make any field searchable and indexed. Sierra has been limited in this aspect, so we'd like to see some more flexibility built into a system to accommodate for this. On the financial side of things, we want to make sure that we still have a clear workflow for creating and tracking acquisitions and orders, and the simpler that is, the better. And last, we want to make sure that we have ILL and obviously MELCAT support. Ideally, we'd like to have a way to link ILL requests with patron accounts, which is something that we found is a little bit outside of Sierra's capabilities in the way that we'd like. So we sent our RFP to 4 vendors, and they're going to sound a little bit familiar. We sent it off to EBSCO for Folio, to OCLC for WMS, and since we use their KB management system, we figured that that might be a good option if they play well together. And Ex Libris for Alma, that's one of the other big systems out there by a lot of institutions around the world. And then we did send one to Sierra as well to sort of give them a second chance at a first impression. Maybe not, but it would help give us a clearer picture of how it compares in a lot of these areas when you're looking at other up and coming options. And so our timeline is we send out the RFP on October the 5th, which is 6 weeks before our proposal due date. We're having questions from the vendors due October 19th, 4 weeks before the proposal due date. And our answers are due back 3 weeks before the due date, which is the 26th. Our presentations are scheduled to start 2 weeks after the proposals are received. And hopefully we'll make our decision 8 weeks after, with implementation starting at 12 weeks after. And then our go live, ideally, if everything works out, 6 months after the start of implementation. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Aaron. Anybody have questions? I'm kind of curious from all of you that have started the RFP process and are in the middle of it or maybe finished with it. Are we overextending or I guess, no, that's not what I want to say. Is our timeline too short for the implementation and all of that?
It's never too short. It just depends on how much time you have to put into it.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, when we moved from Voyager to Millennium, we did it in 6 months. So
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what we have to deal with right now is the data cleanup, definitely, because it's probably we will not be able to do this one-to-one mapping from old system to new system. We might miss something, and that we have to figure out how to compensate for that.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions at this point? I don't see anything in the chat. All right. Are you ready, Patrick?
sure. Yeah. So Grand Valley, we have gone through the process. We've also selected Folio. Our process was a little bit different than the norm for how we normally do this. We knew we wanted to change systems for years. We've known we were moving to something probably. So we had been following the development of Alma for quite a while. We'd had them out a number of times to view how it had changed over the years. We, provided feedback to them on things we'd like to see changed and all that. So then when Folio started to come out and EBSCO was at the point where they were doing demos and showing things, we volunteered to host a Folio Day at Grand Valley. And that was the first time any of the Grand Valley Library staff had seen any part of Folio actually work, which was a big moment, because it's kind of this thing like, oh, it'd be great if there was an actual open source ILS that worked, was supported, and had like a supportive community around it. And then out of nowhere, this product kind of started to come together. So at that point, we really started to follow it. And this would have been in think in the summer of 2019, maybe, we had EBSCO back out to do another demo. And at that point, circulation was working, I think. Base acquisitions was kind of working. They had, I mean, most of the modules were kind of working, and circulation was really working. And at that point, myself and a couple other people were like, I think we could make this work, even if it's not fully fledged. What would it take on our end to move to this? So as a library, I think at that point, many of us had kind of made up our mind that we wanted to do this. So we went and we talked with University of Accounting, who quickly kiboshed all of our plans to go ahead and move to that, because we then had to go through the formal RFP process because of the dollar amount. We tried to explain, well, they're the only, like, technically it's sole source because they're really the only company offering to host this for us. Can we do that? No, they wouldn't let us squirm out of the RFP process. So we tried really hard, but they didn't. So we put together an RFP pretty quickly. I think we did that in like October of last year, and sent it to the same folks that you all are sending things to. We had 3 companies respond. After, so I think the day after the responses were due, we got the announcement that one of the companies had purchased another one of the companies that had submitted a proposal. So really, we had only gotten two companies responses. And for us, there were a number of reasons that we ended up choosing Folio. One was definitely price. The price difference between vendors was significant. And I think, as Aaron said, we definitely don't have infinite resources. So we needed to keep price in mind. Thinking about how long products had been around, Alma is a pretty mature product, and we didn't see much change since we started looking at Alma. And the things that we had concerns about a long time ago hadn't really gotten better since we'd seen the product. And that really concerned a lot of people on staff. We already have a product, Sierra, where we've complained about things and nothing gets fixed. So we didn't really want to go do that again. And in Folio, we saw the opportunity to actually have a product that is being developed by library people. Like, library people are chairing the groups that decide what gets worked on. They're prioritizing work based on need. And if they're not going to work on something we want, we have a developer. We can say, hey, Kyle, go build this thing for us, please. And it might take a while, but he can do that. So we saw some flexibility there. And then we really don't like the current landscape of library products and how just a couple of companies are buying everything and reducing our choice. So we saw this as a way to take a stand against market consolidation and still have a product that met our needs. So that's why we ended up choosing Folio. We signed everything, I think, and ended up in like February of this year. And just as we were starting to really begin meeting with our implementation team, campus got shut down and everyone had to go home, and COVID ruined everything. So EBSCO scrambled a little bit and was pretty unsure of how to proceed. Their first step is normally, I guess, to come to campus and sit with your folks and watch how they work, and then go back to their offices, discuss workflows, and talk about how Folio can meet your workflow needs, or if they have suggestions on how they might be able to make your workflows more efficient. And just see what data you're using, what data you're not using, that kind of stuff. And that wasn't something that they could do right now. So it took us a little while, but we ended up coming up with a plan to do that all virtually. And now we're really rolling. So EDS is set to go live at the end of December. We're well on our way there. It's actually pretty much ready. Just a few things for us to take care of. The EBSCO side of things is mostly done. It's just Grand Valley being slackers. And then Folio, we should be ready to have go live by July 1st this year. So, or not this year, July 1st, 2021. So that's the absolute end date. My guess is we'll end up having parts of it live probably in like May or June, and then not move acquisitions until July 1. So we can close the fiscal year in Sierra and then just start fresh in Folio. I will say so far it's been a good experience. There has been, I would say, the right amount of EBSCO listening to what we need and pushing back on why we do things a certain way. And then if we can give a good reason, they're like, okay. And if not, they're like, so that doesn't seem like a good reason to do it that way. Have you thought about doing it this way? And I think in the end, it'll make us a more efficient library that is able to meet our students' needs. I think we're still finding areas where Folio might not be ready to do what we needed to do, and then figuring out workarounds around those things. But we don't have live data in our Folio tenant quite yet. So I'm assuming we're going to find even more of those areas here in the next month or so when our data gets in there. And then we'll really start planning on what go live looks like for each area in the library. That's all I got, I guess.
Thank you. Are there questions? I have another question. What are you planning to do about Melcat?
I have a meeting with Jackie at Melcat on Friday. So Melcat, I guess, needs to be shut down for 6 to 9 months for all your old transactions to clear out. So like all the overdue things to come back. So they want everything that you had in your old system cleared out before you can move to a new system. So I'm meeting with her on Friday so we can figure out how to make that as short as possible, because that's a very popular service. And then I would assume once that's done, we'll initially launch as a DCB library or whatever. There is a direct to InReach API that's available, and there is a Folio group being headed up by Brooks Travis from Missouri State to develop that for Folio to get that connection going. So potentially we'll be using that API to do Melcat, but initially we'll be going as just all the other non-IIII libraries.
Is that the same for you, Ranti?
About Melcat, we don't even have any conversation about Melcat yet. We literally just officially started this week. But thank you, Aaron, for mentioning that potential thing that we're going to add. So we literally just want to make sure that acquisition works, and then we can put some data samples to our tenant and then to look at that. And then after we see what we got and a potential solution that can be think about.
Jennifer made a comment that it took them 6 months after go live before they were back on Melcat. I hadn't heard that. Okay. Are there other questions at this point or comments?
In terms of that that lapse in Melcat, was that the case with Melcat and any transition to a new system, or to Folio specifically?
Yeah, it was if you're moving from if you're current, well, at least the way it was explained to me, if you're currently a III library and you're moving to a non-III solution, that's the time frame for everything, for every system. Yeah.
Boy.
Jackie LaCalzi can confirm that, though. She's the one I've been talking to.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right. If there are no other questions, I guess we can wrap it up for today, unless somebody else has just any general information or questions they have.
I have a question. It sounds like, well, there are quite a few of us looking right now, and it sounded like in the chat, at least one or two other people, other libraries were looking at moving. I'm wondering if it would be useful for the Michigan libraries that have already put together RFPs to find a place to put those so people could reference them. I know that when we were doing it, I was Googling library system RFP and then would find like random libraries online, but I wonder if it would be nice to have maybe Michigan libraries who are asking, in MELCAT questions and other local questions that like for the state.
Sure, I can relay that to our ADs, what they think about that. I mean, even if we cannot probably put it publicly, we probably willing to share to specific institution who ask for it.
That's a good idea. Well, if there are no other questions, I am going to do our monthly push for someone to step up. Aaron and I, or not Aaron, sorry, Patrick and I are not going to be doing this. The co-chair for this group after this year, and we would like someone to step up and take it over because we feel like there's a lot of good information, a lot of good sharing going on, and we'd hate for the IG to go away. So if you have questions about that, you could contact either Patrick or I about it. So.
Oh, you know what? I have one question that came to me. Oh, are you gone? I was going to ask about the ERM systems and what Folio offered. I mean, did you find good solutions in the new products? I'm just curious. This is Fran.
Yeah. So so with Folio, you use a combination of and Ronti, please correct me when I misspeak because Marcia is my ERM person and she'd answer this much better than me. So with Folio, you use a combination of tools that EBSCO provides. So like you can use, so for example, we're using EDS and then EBSCO's link resolver. EBSCO has a knowledge base thing. And then Folio also has some ERM pieces that you can put e-holdings in. The way I understand it is if you update stuff in the Folio e-holdings, it updates the EBSCO knowledge base. And if you update it in the EBSCO knowledge base, it updates Folio. So you don't have to like do double entry. And so far we've been happy with it, but we've not, I mean, no one's used it really yet, but it's got all the functionality. It should work fine.
Good to know.
Yeah, I think the way probably want to see that, because I know ERM is quite a separate module by itself, right? And then everything, I don't know, but that is because we use Cirrus solutions. We have to upload everything manually, while of these ERM, Folio, and EBS, there's this, because what they said is they basically doing API for everything, right? So then that's why change in one thing can be reflected almost right away with the others is very useful. And I looking forward for that kind of implementation, because oh my God, uploading all those resources from Cirrus Solutions to ERM is a pain in the bottom torso.
Yeah, so I guess I could show it. So there is in Folio, there's a e-holdings app, and then there's an agreements app. So you can put in all your license information. You can upload your like PDFs of your licenses. I could share the screen. There's just no data in it yet. Oh, there is one test agreement, it looks like. So you can store all your contacts in there. It's very similar to Cirrus Solutions, the same kind of information.
Great. Thank you.
And I have the feeling that ERM stuff is not really a big deal, because all the presentation always start from electronic resources. It's for some reason. So I think that part it's mature already. It's the connection with other system outside the Folio is the one we actually really want to make sure it works. like our EBS or financial accounting university or our student information system, those kind of things.
Okay, do we have other questions, comments? All right. Thank you all very much for presenting, and I learned a lot. And we are, let's see, I've forgotten what we're talking about next time. It is the impact of COVID on ERM. So that's our topic next month, and I hope to see you then.
Thanks, everybody.